Halo laptop, behemoth, gaming beast, juggernaut. These are words that get thrown around a lot when it comes to different gaming devices, gaming laptops, gaming desktops. There's another word that I like to throw around a lot, and that is extremely premium gaming beast. That's what we have right here. This is not a cheap laptop. Let's get this started. This is a Lenovo Legion 9i Pro. This is actually last year's 2023 model, but there's really nothing changed for 2024. They went from the 13980HX processor up to the 14900HX processor, which realistically almost perform identically. Otherwise, they're basically the exact same laptop. So I decided to pick up last year's model. I don't think there's anything wrong with getting this year's or last year's model. Really just get whatever's cheaper. This one happened to be cheaper here. This laptop is the spiritual successor to the 2022 Legion 7, which is, in my opinion, still probably the most premium, kind of just nice all-arounder gaming laptop that Lenovo has made. And this one here is basically the spiritual successor. They have the Lenovo Legion 7i Pro. I just recently did a review on that. I've done many of them. Those you can get up to a 4090. Obviously, that's the best GPU you can get right now. And you can get a very powerful CPU, 13900. This year's model came with the 14900HX, very powerful CPU, basically the same as this. But those models have some compromises here and there. They have a little bit more plastic, keyboard deck's a little more plastic, just a little bit more plastic overall. They're a little bit thicker as well. The 9i Pro here doesn't compromise on any of that. There is some weird, people have ripped on them. You know, they have the water cooling thing in them that really doesn't, I don't think it does anything. If you watch Dave 2D's video, I think he kind of did some in-depth testing of that. So there's no point me getting into that saying, oh, the water loop doesn't do anything. We already know that. However, these things are actually going on sale, right? Last year's model and this year's model. I actually just saw a nice Lenovo sale on the Legion 9i Pro for 2024, brand new. And it actually brought it within striking range of the 7i Pro. It was definitely more expensive, but it was within the same range. And that makes this laptop very compelling. And let me tell you why. This is an all-metal chassis, metal bottom, metal lid, metal keyboard deck. The 7i Pro does not have a metal keyboard deck. This does. You get this kind of like carbon fiber camouflage kind of vibe on the front here, on the top here. Very cool. This, when I say it's a spiritual successor to the 2022 models, because it's also quite thin for what it is. It may look big on camera, but this is a relatively thin laptop, right? Like I'm going to bring in another one to just do a comparison here, because a lot of the times you show things on camera and they don't really come across. This is a IdeaPad 5 Pro, thin Ultrabook laptop. And look at how close these are. Definitely, I mean, the Legion is thicker, but I mean, we're in the same realm, right? Like maybe a few millimeters here and there, right? And this is an Ultrabook, a 16-inch Ultrabook that I consider to be actually relatively thin for a 16-inch Ultrabook. That means that this laptop here, despite being a 4090, 64 gigabytes of RAM, mini OLED screen, gaming powerhouse, it's also very premium and relatively thin. 2,500 grams, that puts it at about 5.3, 5.4 pounds. Again, relatively light for what it is, right? Lighter than the Legion 7 Pro. The cool thing is here, it comes with two chargers. So it comes with its big boy charger here. This is a very high wattage option, 320 watts. This is the big boy. It's going to be fairly heavy, obviously. Little over 2.2 pounds. Basically 2.2 pounds. So it's the heavy one. But you also get a lighter charger, which is really cool, right? So here you get a somewhat lighter charger, USB-C. You can still take this with you if you need to be able to do, work on the go. You can probably do some light gaming on it. You're not going to get anywhere near the wattage out of it. It's 140 watts, but it's going to be more than enough to supply what the laptop needs to just do day-to-day work. And this one here is USB-C powered. And these Lenovo Legions can use proprietary 140 watt over USB-C. So this will supply 140 watts over USB-C, not 100 watts. If you get yourself a third-party charger, plug it in here, typically you're going to be limited at 100 watts. This will give you 140 watts, which is more than enough for that CPU to just absolutely tear. So, if you're not doing heavy gaming and using the GPU, but if you are doing something like heavy other type of works like programming, something like that, it's going to be very CPU intensive. You can still use this and get max performance out of that CPU. This one is much lighter. You can see it's actually less than half the weight. But you open this up here, you get your little cloth there, and you get some lovely ceramic keycaps 4 white and then the pastel kind of options, more like earth tone pastels. You also get the actual switch kind of holder as well. So if you damage these over time, you can swap them out. So on the left side here, we get a full-size SD card and a headphone jack. That denotes the fact that this is actually not just for gamers, it's also for just kind of everyone. It's actually a hybrid style, high-end gaming laptop because it's so thin, right? If you're just a gamer working at your desk, you probably don't care. You get the 7i Pro. It's thicker, it's heavier, but you're probably not moving around as much with it. The 9i Pro, I find, is actually for people who potentially are doing more of a hybrid work with it and maybe moving around with it. Headphone on the back there as well. Exhaust out. Right side of the laptop, camera kill switch, your first USB-C, a USB-A tucked on the back there. So nice ports on the right there. You get USB-A, USB-C within easy access. And then like the other, like Legions, like most Legions on the back, you're going to get other things. And then on the back, of course, you get more I/O because it's a Legion. You get your exhaust there, RJ45 Ethernet, first USB-A. And the nice thing is they are labeled, you can see there. That's you're going to be always on. So if you want to charge devices, you can plug it in there. It'll charge them overnight, even if the laptops sleep. USB-C, and you can see that's a Thunderbolt. What do we have here? Oh, another USB-C. You can see that's a Thunderbolt. HDMI, proprietary power in. And again, you can power this over USB-C, obviously. They include one. So far, looking really nice. You can see inside the laptop now that they've migrated the keyboard down, right? So it's probably a couple centimeters down from some laptops. That does shrink the trackpad as a result, and it does bring that keyboard a little bit closer to the user. I think for a lot of people, they're not going to care, especially if you use the smaller laptops, because that is probably the same keyboard distance of the smaller laptop anyways. It just looks really shrunk because it also has a numpad to the side. But if you take that out, right, like that's pretty much as much run as you're going to get on a smaller laptop anyway. So not actually that much of a problem. I've used this laptop on and off for the past few weeks. It doesn't really bother me, but it might bother some people. Just be aware of it. Fingerprint unlock there, which does replace the Windows Hello. So you do get some biometric login. Very dark charcoal color here. It's not black, but it's a very dark charcoal, and it's a very soft touch kind of texture. Actually, it feels like what you would get if you got a very high luxury sedan, like a car. Luxury sedan, you got that soft touch, I guess, soft touch plastic inside of them. It's not really plastic, but it's like almost like a rubbery soft touch, very premium, right? So it doesn't have that typical like glossy plastic look to it or a glossy metal to it, which are, you know, they have a sticky texture, and the blacks especially show fingerprints. On this, it doesn't show fingerprints that much. Keyboard is also, I guess it's technically black, but it does contrast slightly with that there. And the trackpad does not have like, you know, a glass shiny top to it, but it's still very nice there. And you can see why the keyboard has moved down. Can you see that? There's fans that run through the laptop. Fascinating. I think part of it, they moved it down was for that water cooling, but also, you know, you get the fans from the top and the bottom. So despite the fact that this thing is almost impossibly thin, like if this laptop is open, you can see that there. Look how thin that is. Look at that. That's a tiny, thin little laptop. I brought my hand in so you can actually see. Look how thin that is, right? The screen sometimes makes people think they're bigger, but look at how thin that is. This Legion here is a little bit harder to get into some of the other ones that are like plastic because it does have, you know, the metal setup here. Typically what I do is I go in the top here, like that. I've been into it a few times. Come in like that there. You just want to work that. It's a little bit harder in the front, I find. So I go in the back here. So I try to separate the back part here, like that. And then I just use the twisting motion going along, like that. Going along the back. Right. Take your time. It's a nice metal structure on the back, so you don't feel like you're going to break anything, to be honest, once you get that piece off. You do get huge, nice speakers here. You'll see when we get to the audio section how good the audio is, but they don't screw around. The 7 series and obviously the 9 are going to have those really premium speakers. As big a battery as you can get, 99 watt-hour battery, so, or this is 98, but it actually is 99 when you check it in BIOS. Behemoth there. Shield here with 2 NVMe's under it. It actually come in RAID 0, so 1 terabyte, 1 terabyte. RAID 0 means they run super fast. I can't remember exactly what it is, but very fast. You can take them out of RAID. You could take those out, put in a 4 terabyte and a 4 terabyte, put them in RAID, leave them out of RAID. It's up to you, right? Your call. But they come in RAID naturally. Fan 1, very dense. Fan 2, very dense, and you can see the design style of them. They don't get a lot of air turbulence. This is the design I'm finding that Lenovo has been using with these. Reduces turbulence, which reduces noise, basically. I don't know if it helps with temps. It might, but definitely reduces turbulence. You get the other heat sink over. You get the other fan over here, so you get 3 fans. There's nothing really to see on this laptop, to be honest, right? You can pull this off here. Not really a lot going on underneath, right? We'll pull this off. It's just a piece of plastic. It's just a kind of a plasticky type material, whatever. Pull that off there. You know, there's not really much going on under there. You do get your Wi-Fi here, easily upgradable. So upgrade the SSDs here, upgrade the Wi-Fi. You don't need to upgrade the Wi-Fi. It's very fast. I'll give you a spoiler. The RAM, however, is on the flip side of the board. These ship with, I think, minimum 32 gigabytes. This model has 64 gigabytes. So again, you're probably not going to need to upgrade it. But if you do, you just take out the motherboard, flip it over. Obviously, take out the battery. And then you flip it over and you can access the RAM. But again, you're probably not going to need to do that because it has 64 gigabytes on this model or 32. Spec it out how you want. Lenovo actually doesn't upcharge like crazy for the RAM, at least on these models. So, I mean, get the amount of RAM that you want. Okay, so first things first, we're booted up here, fresh install. We'll do a quick typing test here on this keyboard. So you can see you obviously do get your full standard Legion setup numpad on the right there, ever so slightly shrunk, but it's still a dedicated numpad. You get your functions embedded up there, but you can also switch this off here. So if you want this to be, for example, we'll click there. Right now it's going to be function buttons. You can switch that again, and it'll be volume up, volume down, your pick. You do get also dedicated numbers here, dedicated directions here. There is obviously RGB. There is RGB out here. You actually get a bunch of different profiles. These are just the ones that come programmed. I'll show you how to choose that in a minute, but we'll get that out there. We'll start typing. But yeah, like I said, it is shifted down slightly towards you. So, you know, when you're actually putting your hands on your, people may ask, and people have asked me already, you know, how do you feel about that? Does it feel a little bit weird? Honestly, not really, to be honest, because your hands are going to sit right there. My hands are still fully on the keyboard when I'm typing. None of them are sitting off. So it actually doesn't really make a difference. I don't know if they measured like average finger length to palm. I guess if you have huge hands, your hands might hang off, but I think that'd be the same if you had a small laptop. So I guess that's one thing, but let's do a quick typing test here. You can see here that the keycaps themselves are not very large, right? So the actual physical keycaps are relatively small, right? Short, I say. But there's a ton of travel, and they're super snappy. It's a Legion keyboard, so typically Legion keyboards are best in class. Realistically, they're best in class, unless you get into like a mechanical style laptop keyboard, which is subjective if you like that or not. I actually do like them, but some people don't. This is going to be a keyboard that's going to appeal to everyone. It's a fantastic keyboard to type on, very snappy. I mean, just so much snap on these keys. The layout of them is really nice. It's just a breeze and a joy to type on these keyboards here. So very nice. You do get a little bit of fingerprints. I've used this laptop on and off here and there. It's not bad for fingerprints, but you can get a little bit. Not as bad as an all black laptop, but it is possible to get fingerprints. We'll come look at the RGB here. So you can come into Lenovo Vantage here. Down at the bottom, you do get Lenovo Spectrum. There's your 6 options here that you can go through. And then there is brightness here, right? So you get, using these here, you can get 1, let's off, 1, 2, 3. And then in here you have intermediate brightnesses, right? So you get extras there. You can also come in here and customize. So right now it's on, I don't know, rainbow, whatever. You can go per key, right? So you can pick these. You could say, you know, I want W, A, I want to be W, A, S, D. And I want those ones to be, I don't know, always on and red or something like that, or random color. You know, you can go through and mess with these however you want. It's your pick. Set them up how you want them to be. You know, for the review here, I might just leave it blue, just so it's not like flashing and being distracting. There's all kinds of options you can do in here. Very nice. And of course, you do get the undercarriage RGB there, which you can customize, right? You can customize these too. I can click there and say, I want that bar to be whatever color. I want this bar, I can actually click on it, this bar here to be, I don't know, ripple. Right, there's all kinds of stuff you can do in here. While we're in, and then we'll just quick look at the trackpad here. Like I said before, it is shrunk. So it is vertically shrunk, left to right, it's the same size. So you're not gonna have any issues getting left and right, but you can easily clear the whole screen, more than the whole screen, using the trackpad, right? No problems there. So, and it's a very nice feeling trackpad. I don't know, there's this weird phenomenon. People want these trackpads that are like that big. Like here, let me use my trackpad here real quick. Like, I don't get it. I don't personally get it. I don't understand. Apple started doing it. And because Apple did, everyone's like, it's premium now. Why do I want a trackpad that's that freaking big when I'm trying to type like the whole freaking keyboard? The whole laptop is a trackpad. I don't get it. Like I would prefer if this was slightly higher, obviously, like add another centimeter to it. But I don't understand that phenomenon. So realistically, going down to this size is fine. I mean, most ThinkPads actually have a trackpad around this size anyways, because they have dedicated buttons with the nib there. And I mean, people love those. So I guess it depends on personal preference, but yeah, I don't really get that. You have things like your balanced mode here, your quiet mode, your performance mode. You can also switch them here, performance, quiet, auto. There's also custom mode. You can do a ton of stuff in here. You can come in here and you can decide what is the actual max amount of power that you put to the GPU, for example. So, maybe you find that quiet mode is not enough, but it puts, not enough to the CPU or something like that, or vice versa. You can come in here and say, you know what? Quiet mode, we're going to go with 80 watts on the GPU, but let the CPU have as much as it needs so it doesn't lag or something like that, or vice versa, right? All kinds of different stuff you can do in here. Dynamic boosting, the amount that it changes there, set up a threshold, all kinds of stuff you can do, right? How much CPU power you're going to get in there, it's your pick. I have played around with this quite a bit. That's what I've been doing on the laptop, basically messing around with it. And I found that you can see that purple there. I have a really nice kind of quiet mode, which I'm in right now. And what that is it's at 80 watts on the GPU. It's 80 watts on the GPU there. So the GPU is not going to perform anywhere near as good when it's on 80 versus, max watts, 150 plus boosting. But what I then did is I let the GPU come down a little bit there, and I gave the CPU a little bit more power. So the GPU wasn't pulling as much power, but this CPU is pretty hungry. And I just played around with it and tested it. There's all kinds of stuff you can do in here, depending on the games that you like to play. I just found it fun to make my own kind of quiet mode. You can use their quiet mode or whatever, but I just found it kind of neat to do that. So very cool software. There's also overclocking on the GPU. You can come in here and you can overclock it by 200 and 400 on the clocks. Pick if you want to do that. GPU working mode, hybrid versus DGPU versus iGPU. Typically leave it in hybrid mode because this laptop has Advanced Optimus. To use Advanced Optimus, you need to be in hybrid mode. So you're going to leave that in hybrid mode here, meaning it can switch between integrated graphics or dedicated graphics when it needs to. And then you can come in here and you go manage display mode. You can let it figure it out on its own, or if you just want to be in DGPU mode, just put it in DGPU mode, and you're going to be locked in there for max performance. iGPU mode is Optimus, put it in there. Sometimes Windows is stupid and it'll wake up your computer, it'll wake up your NVIDIA graphics, and you're like, why is my battery dying so freaking fast? It's like because Windows is like telling your NVIDIA graphics that like your browser is a game. That happens all the time. And I've been starting to show this in my videos because people are wondering how I get such good battery life. And I do this here. I go to game mode. I come in here and I tell it which software is not supposed to use the dedicated graphics and vice versa. So you can come in here and I don't know, we'll pick one, Crystal Dismark. Okay. Normally your browser though is a big one. And you come in here and you say options and you say, no, this is not high performance. I want it on iGPU mode. I find browsers typically will wake up your NVIDIA graphics, even though they don't need to. Your browser doesn't need a 4090 to be like playing YouTube. And I don't know if you can tell, but this is a gorgeous freaking screen. My camera is not going to do it justice. I'm going to tell you that right now. This is a mini LED screen. So OLED screens, I use OLEDs all the time. OLED screens, you get absolute blacks, technically like infinite contrast ratio. If they're a good OLED screen, like maybe the Lenovo Yoga 9i, for example, will have 100% DCI-P, gorgeous screen, OLED, glossy. This one here is a mini LED, so you get the advantages of OLED in that you get absolute blacks. This one here is 100% DCI-P, so it looks absolutely freaking gorgeous. It's not going to come across on camera, but when you use this screen, it is shockingly good. You'll also notice that you can't see my face. The Yoga 9i is a glossy OLED, and it's very reflective. It's actually hard to film that laptop. It's not so bad in person. I like glossy screens, but there's something to be said by going with like a screen like this that's matte, but not IPS. So you're getting the matteness of an IPS, but you're also getting amazing view angles you get on an IPS, but it's not glossy, right? Like an OLED, it's not glossy. Even my non-glossy OLED that I have on my Lenovo ThinkPad P1, it has an OLED and it's an anti-gloss OLED. It's still way more reflective than this. This is just gorgeous to look at, like actually gorgeous. And because it's mini LED, you're also going to get extreme brightness. OLEDs can't get as bright, at least right now with the technology. You can't have an OLED with 1,000 nits. I think probably because of burn-in, or maybe it's just the technology is limited. This thing gets mega bright. mega bright. If you have this thing on max brightness and you're like, you turn off all your room lights and you're just messing about, and then you go to like a white screen, like I have everything in dark mode, but if this was on white, it would like sear your eyeballs because it's like a flashbang. There's so much brightness on the screen. So if you take this and I have tested this, I'm like in my upstairs area, my dining area where it's like crazy bright in the day, like if there's a sun's coming right in on the laptop, this thing will cut through the sunlight like it's nothing because it's such a bright screen. So if you work in a very bright environment, this thing is gorgeous for that type of setting there. And then we'll come in here and we'll look at the display modes. Obviously, they're going to be very nice. This is a Halo level screen, 3.2K. That means it's higher than 1600p, just below 4K. So it sits between 1600p and 4K. It has crazy powerful GPU, so obviously there's a reason why. 165 hertz refresh rate on that too, so you get very high refresh rate. People may say, well, why is it not 700 hertz? It's an almost 4K screen. You're not going to be pushing 165 FPS in like 4K type games. But anyways, let's come in here. We'll actually look at the screen. So you can see here, very beautiful screen here. You know, if you're getting into like a full creator style screen, they might be a little bit more vibrant, maybe, I'm not sure. It all really depends. I typically find that glossy screens, if the screen is glossy, you get a little bit more pop off of them. The colors just pop a bit more. When they're matte, it does ever so slightly mute the screen, the colors on it, but otherwise, you know, it's super vibrant, especially for a non-glossy. Blacks, the camera will not do this justice, but you know, it's a mini LED screen, so the blacks are fantastic here, right? If it was a glossy OLED or glossy mini LED, like the Yoga 9i, for example, it would be slightly more apparent that it was, you know, absolute blacks. But trust me, you move from this laptop to an IPS screen, you're like, oh God, what have I done? Gorgeous screen. The only way I would personally improve it, for me, Tech Guy Bo, is to give it a glossy screen. Because it just makes the colors pop more. But I think 99% of people would not agree with me because it would make playing games more annoying. Gorgeous screen. Yeah, like it's just so much nicer to use that. And you can see the mini LED dimming zones there, right? You can see how that has dimming zones all over the place, right? Because I bring the mouse over and they're dim at first. That's the dimming zones at play there. That's one of the reasons you know that it's a mini LED and it has dimming zones. It's so vibrant and beautiful. That's so nice. So it gets loud, obviously. There are better speakers out there on like the MacBook Pro 16-inch has better speakers. I mean, that's kind of what it's for. People use that for like music creation, but this is going to be like upper tier gaming laptop, like probably the same as like the 7i Pro, like really, really up there, getting up to like the best of the best for like Windows machines, which would be like the Asus. I guess some of their 16 and 17-inch laptops have crazy good audio. The Lenovo Legion 7i Pro, the Lenovo Legion 9i Pro, the Lenovo Yoga 9i. These are like Halo sound. Tons of bass on the laptop, lots of mid-range, lots of high-end, and it's nice and clear throughout, feels very rich. The only way that I would say, like if you look at like a MacBook Pro 16-inch has more very low-end bass. Okay, we'll do some Cinebench tests here, just more for noise and temperatures. We'll get the benchmarks after. When we get to that part, you'll see the actual scores. But we'll be on performance mode, and we'll test the different modes here and just see what we can get. This is an incredibly powerful CPU, just so you know. I mean, you'll see. We'll get in here. It'll get a little noisy, obviously, but... temperatures on the CPU right there. It's really capable of keeping this thing cool, so... There are much louder laptops out there under full load. About 51, that's really nothing for such a powerful CPU here. No throttling at all. We're sitting at about 80 degrees there. Look at that score. We'll get to it later. 28,470. Crazy high score. That's like desktop, upper level desktop performance. Like it's up here with like high level Threadripper type stuff. 32 core, 64 threads, Threadrippers. Just see how much quieter it gets. I'll get the performance on all of them in a sec, but You can hear how much quieter it gets. Drops down a little bit. You can put it into silent mode here. It gets a lot quieter in silent mode. Still a ton of power in the silent mode, but it's yeah, like you can see how fast it's rendering. It's in silent mode, it's just ripping through the rendering, but it's much quieter.
Realistically, the primary negative of this laptop, other than its high price, is the battery life. You can see here that we're doing idle. We are at full brightness and full refresh rate here, but you can see here that even at idle, we're sitting at about -16, -17 watts being burned. So that's going to give us probably 5 hours, maybe 6 if you're lucky, just on idle. Once you start loading up YouTube or doing any demanding tasks, even just browsing, you're going to start burning through that battery pretty fast. If you're actually doing pretty complex desktop tasks, internet browsing, maybe word processing, moving around, you're probably going to actually burn through that battery in maybe 2 to 2.5 hours at most, despite the fact that it's a relatively large battery.
Okay, so we're going to start here at the native resolution, which is extremely high. Like I said, it's almost 4K. So if you see here, we're at, so if you see our display here, we're at 3200 by 2000. That's well above 1600p and massively above 1080p and above 1440p. So if you look at these things compared to 1440p screens, 1600p screens, this is more demanding, obviously. So we'll start with that there. So very high settings, no scaling. Let's see what we can get here on performance mode. And look at that, that's an easy 60 FPS, very high settings, just shy of 4K, brand new game, Horizon Forbidden West. Like, this is desktop, upper level desktop performance, right? Like, many thousands of dollars desktop performance to get 60 like this. Right, fantastic. And you can see the lows are good too, 35, 53, etc. CPU, this is a more GPU intensive game. It's pulling 43 watts. It's a very GPU intensive game, and you can see there we're able to boost between the CPU and GPU, and we're able to get up to just shy of 770 watts on that 4090. Serious performance here. Look how good the screen looks too. Cool. It's like you actually want to play games on the screen. Like, what is the point of an external screen? The 4090 is going to start to get a little hungry, but the CPU is going to get a little hungry too, but we're still at 45 watts actually. Much quieter too, right? Because we're at that basically almost 4K resolution here. Let's try, I don't know, it's balanced. That should get us 60 or so. Again, we're on now balanced mode. You'll see a considerable drop to the GPU. 96 right now on the watts, 100 or so. So we dropped like 65, 70 watts off of that GPU. That's a ton. The CPU is only down a little bit, but the GPU is way down now. And all I did is throw a little bit about it's DLSS, and we're back up to over 60. And again, because this type of game as well, you're fine playing at this type of resolution. You're fine playing at this type of FPS. And again, remember, this is high resolution, very high resolution. So we're going to come out here, go into Lenovo Vantage. We're going to go into my little custom mode that I made. I just like to mess around with stuff, right? So we'll come in here, we'll go my little, we'll come in here and we'll go to my little custom mode. So there's performance, go to custom here. I made this mode. I just took 5 minutes to mess around. You can come in and do it on your own. And look what happened. I let the GPU come down. So I starved the GPU a little bit, back down to that 86 watts or so, but I didn't starve the CPU. I said, the CPU can go. It runs a little bit quieter than balance mode. I think you can actually pull down the GPU even more, right? See that? It's running very well. You can bring down the GPU more if you want. But honestly, in most cases, if you find the fans annoying, you throw it in balance mode, you're good to go. Okay, so 1600p native on very high. Right? A lot of frames here. Again, 1600p, no scaling here. Look how great that performance is there. Excellent lows too. Absolutely fantastic. Let's try some of this here. 4K, balanced DLSS, NVIDIA frame generation. This is a real 4K screen with just a little bit of DLSS, frame generation.
But it's not easy keeping up with a machine writer. You always wear a good tracker.
Look at that performance. Let's try native just real quick. I just want to see what we get with, you know, without all these shenanigans on here. So native, see what happens. So native 4K on very high is almost 50 FPS. Amazing. This is real 4K. No upscaling. No frame generation. Real 4K. The screen looks so much. This is a good screen. It looks so much worse. It's just funny. It is what it is. It's also a lot dimmer. Mongols will call out before shooting. Why would they do that? Get wrecked. Legion 9i Pro. Punk. Yeah. So, I mean, the game looks fantastic. Look how beautiful that looks. Right? Really nice. Here's another shockingly good game that's actually more demanding than people realize, and also very nice looking, very vibrant. That's one of the reasons I'm testing it. Baldur's Gate. So we'll test this out basically at max, so we're going to be at 2000p here. Let's throw it on, we'll throw it on Ultra. 2000p. I'm just going to throw on the lightest DLSS because we're in the city here, which is a brutal area of the game, to be honest. And there's your 65. This game is very hard. You can see because look at the CPU. This is why I want to test this, to show that this game here is interesting because it doesn't just hit your GPU, it also hits your CPU. It's kind of a worst case scenario for the Legion 9i here because, you know, I was playing Ghost of Tsushima, I was playing Horizon Forbidden West, and they use CPU, but they really hit the GPU. They're very GPU intensive games. You can see here the GPU is actually down slightly, 120, but look at the CPU. 100 watts on that CPU, up to 113. This game is demanding because it blasts your CPU and it blasts your GPU. So if you have a laptop with an inadequate CPU, lots of GPU, not going to be good, and vice versa. So you can see here, this Legion is up to the task because it is able to pump a ton of watts into that CPU and a ton of watts into that GPU, and you're going to be able to get your 60 here without any issues whatsoever on max fidelity. This is the hardest part of the game. If you watch my channel, you know, you're not just coming in for the Legion review here, you watch my other stuff, you know why I benchmarked this game. This game is very hard to run. Okay, my friends, so what do I think about this Legion laptop here? You'll notice in the video I didn't show my face other than in the webcam portion. Why? Because this is a gorgeous laptop and I wanted to jump right into it. This laptop is the spiritual successor to the 2022 Legion 7. It's super thin for what it is. A Legion laptop with crazy high specs. You can see just how thin that body is there, right? It has excellent cooling for the components inside. Gorgeous screen, very bright, and despite being very bright, it maintains the proper saturation here. Vivid colors, mini LED, dark blacks, really beautiful screen, really beautiful screen on it. All metal chassis, excellent build quality, superb keyboard. A little weird with that pulled down, but it doesn't bother me. It may bother you. Just be aware of that. That is pulled down slightly. Trackpad is normal sized, I would say, rather than oversized. Again, that may not be something that bothers you. It may. Outstanding specifications, 62 gigabytes on this model. I see a lot of them with 32. Pick what you poison there. I think 32 is a lot, actually, realistically. It's going to be a lot for years. That's usually where I buy in, but why not go for 64? This specific model is essentially unchanged from 2023, 2024, so I'm comfortable covering them both. Really, the only difference is the CPU goes from a 13980HX up to a 14900HX, which are almost identical in performance. GPU is identical, internals identical, everything else is identical. So both of them are going to fall into this category. Buy whichever is cheaper. If you can get last year's model for cheaper, get it. If you can get this year's model for cheaper, get it. I've actually seen some decent sales on the 2024 model of this laptop. Now, should you buy the laptop? That's up to you. You can get into a 4090 cheaper if you get, for example, the Lenovo Legion 7i Pro. It's a little bit cheaper, depending on your currency, maybe $500 American cheaper, maybe $300. It all depends on the sales. But I mean, it is definitely considerably cheaper to get into the 7i Pro. However, the 7i Pro is not as premium. It doesn't have a metal upper deck. It does have some metal on the top and bottom, but it doesn't have that there. It certainly does not have a mini LED screen. It's not remotely as thin as this laptop here. It doesn't come with ceramic keycaps you can swap in there. It doesn't come with 2 chargers, and it's also a noisier laptop. So you can buy into what I would consider an absolute upper S tier gaming laptop with really no corners cut. It is an incredible laptop for what I would consider a reasonably expensive price. Not a reasonable price, but a reasonably expensive price. Other brands, when you're getting into this type of premium, I'm not even sure many brands even have such a laptop like this. But the best of the best from some of the other brands out there, they cost much more than this laptop. They can be very expensive. This laptop is also not cheap. It is a very expensive laptop. However, I mean, it's the nicest gaming laptop I've ever used in my entire life, right? I've used every Legion since I think 2021, maybe 2020. I don't know, something like that. I've used all kinds of Asus laptops. I've used several Gigabyte laptops. I've used lots of MSI laptops. I can't even think. HP, I've used lots of HP laptops. Dell, all kinds of laptops. Razer blades, I've used lots of Razer blades. I've owned, I think, 4 or maybe 5 Razer blades that there is. You can get into bigger, more powerful things like the MSI Titan. It's also incredibly expensive, much more than this, and it's a behemoth. This laptop is absolutely outstanding. If you got the money and you want the best, this is the one to go with. Oh, one negative, the battery life sucks. Be aware. I don't think that's really a surprise here. The battery life does suck. But other than that, and the fact that it's super expensive, it is an outstanding, outstanding laptop.